Hi, I'm Gopinath Das, Venugopal Damerla. I am a staff physician, Department of Medical Oncology here in San Antonio, Texas, at the Departments of Veterans Affairs. Very nice, thank you. I'm very grateful for the BI faculty and board members for having me. Actually, um, I feel that this is a great forum. I would congratulate especially Prajesh Prabhu to have organized this. This is so important. I've been waiting for many decades to see something like this happen, and it's happening. That's fantastic. So first thing, many people are trying these days to meditate more from the heart. If you just see, these days, the knowledge, because there is knowledge that the intention to create health needs to be strengthened first, and that starts from the heart. And there's a lot of talk and research going on heart-centered meditation and such. So in our institute, we actually have undertaken this effort about roughly about 9 or 10 years ago, um, um, officially. So that this has been my dream since I met the devotees more than 30 years ago, and actually very grateful to Srila Prabhupada for having me inspired me to do this work. So a heart-centered, audible can can audible meditation, like what Srila Prabhupada taught us, um, be a gateway to facilitate um, the spirit to help create mental and physical well-being? So mental and physical well-being are, inseparable from a state of mental balance. So we actually have our research basically focuses on influence of easily learned Mahamantra Japa, or chanting meditation on the heart and brain. So and our current findings so far, they point in the direction that trained attention to audible repetition of Mahamantra, or sounds with spiritual connection, are like passwords which inherently induce um, positive emotions and intentions. So, and I would just like to just give an insight of what Srila Prabhupada always saw science as part of knowledge which is coming from Krishna. So Prabhupada says any knowledge you accept is Veda, as long if it's uplifting, then you can call it as Vedic knowledge. So we don't see modern science like separate from Vedic knowledge. As a person who is rigorously trained in the scientific method, I would I would definitely see the positives of science and how science can be used to experience Krishna consciousness with objectivism. So so the overview of my talk would be understanding health and its connection to sound and mantra, and some mechanisms which underpin the action of the audible mantra meditation. So there are three key points. The anatomical organization of the body consists of very specific facts. One of them is the auditory nerve, which is common to hearing and equilibrium. The second is the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve, supplies the inner ear and connects heart to the brain. And the third is neuroscientists have postulated that the heart is just not a pump; it's a thinking organ. Because we know, as from our Bhagavata understanding, that the heart is the seat of consciousness and the Paramatma. So actually, if you just see, Srila Prabhupada is saying in the second chapter, one of his purports, translations to the verses in the second chapter that the individual atomic soul is definitely there in the heart along with the super soul, and thus all energies of bodily movement are emanating from this part of the body. So the corpuscles, the red cell corpuscles, which carry the oxygen from lungs, gather energy from the soul. These are the literal words of Srila Prabhupada. He gives special importance to the region of the heart. And also Lord Krishna himself is saying in many verses that I am situated, sarvasya chaham siddhi sannivishtam. But there are many verses, I don't want to say, go into the Sanskrit verses, but this is all actually very important for understanding research methodology. And also I'll speak lastly about the current research and evidence of health benefits with chanting. So we actually know that so the modern, lot of, despite modern advances and in the fields of diagnostic surgery and pharmaceuticals for acute health conditions, chronic lifestyle diseases are on the rise. We know that especially in the modern world, that depression, heart disease, obesity, stroke, cancer, arthritis, they're the most common and also very costly and preventable health problems. So the spiritually based interventions, like the easily learned ones like Mahamantra meditation, becomes all the more relevant to the modern uh, health and well-being of the world. So the underlying principle of, as I know, is that things go from the internal to external. What it practically means is that the extent one is clean in his consciousness, the more healthy our consciousness is, it will manifest a strong, auspicious, and emotional and physical health. So this, in the modern scientific world, in the modern literature, we see that those who follow a spiritual religious path, they live longer, at least 13 years longer than people who don't have a spiritual path. And this is actually one which is published in a journal, in a heart journal. So what are the reasons? One of the reasons we can think of is people who have a spiritual path have a better capacity to self-regulation and probably higher willpower. They also have a higher heart rate variability. That I'll come to what is heart rate variability in just a little bit. In just a few slides, I'll be talking about that. And then people who with a spiritual path seem to have a unique capacity to manage their stress well. Although all of us have stress, how we manage it is very, very important. So, and positive emotions and intentions unlock the body's inbuilt pharmacy or intelligence. Our bodies all have inbuilt intelligence in them. So, like when I was watching, one of the surgeons was saying that the uniqueness, the surgeons only cut. You can cut a piece of leather, and you can cut a piece of, like a living body. A piece of leather never, even if you leave it, it'll always be gaping open. But if you leave, you cut a person and then you leave after 5-6 days, you see that it's actually healing. So that actually is a very simple understanding that the body has intelligence to heal. And Vedic understanding have taken into consideration all these things to connect spiritual practice and staying well. And the conceptual framework of Vedic understanding is the life is basically a combination of three factors. You have the body and the senses, you have the material and physical elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, and then you have the subtle body, which is the mind, intelligence, and ego. The mind is an interface between matter and consciousness. It's an intermediate sense organ. And then there you have the self or soul, which is pure consciousness. It is non-material and is located in the region of the heart. So as I said earlier, recent discoveries do reveal that heart sends more impulses to the brain than brain sends to the heart. As you see, we can understand that the in, that the ancient healing science regards the phenomenal universe and the human system coming from sabda or sound. And we know that sound, according to the Bhagavata philosophy, the pranava sound Om is the platform for time and space. So so there are ways like repeating mantras, which when repeated on audibly on a daily basis, they encode for actually physical and mental well-being. These mantras are capable of purging toxic thought patterns and unlock the body's inbuilt pharmacy. So, in the Vedic perspective, health is not an absence of disease. Rather, it's the resultant state of being in the moment with a purpose, with a ability for empathy. It is the dynamic balance of psychophysiological and psychological and spiritual influences. So there are threefold modalities of prevention of chronic illness in the Ayurveda. And one of them is a very stands out that mantra meditation was integral part of routine because that helps balance bodily factors, the mind especially. And then you have the pursuit of self-discovery, which is a key to our inbuilt pharmacy. Somebody has a purpose, always a purpose. The pharmacy which is built um, actually is very active and giving us all the things we need to maintain our health. So the third thing is the food was seen as medicine, and apart from proper timely food, sleep, movement, and relaxation. So the choices for food also depends on a person's capacity for self-regulation. If somebody has better willpower, that person can eat on time, eat the right foods, and also eat with the right consciousness. So that because whatever we eat becomes actually raw material. So uh, for for the healing processes. So food is just not fuel. Food is also a language, which is which is conveyed. So the next aspect of Vedic understanding in health is the three gunas. So we have sattva, rajas, and tamas, and sattva is the creative, the maintenance mode. Rajas is the creative mode, and tamas is the destructive mode. So the daily practice, so we know that daily practice of Hare Krishna Mantra, we can experience all these qualities. Even if you spend like half an hour of chanting, just like anyone can experiment for himself or herself, that you find a better sense of balance, harmony, positivity, peacefulness, clarity, and also lightness and creativity, openness. All these things come when we chant attentively. We can see that happening. And also, a lot of people who do yoga and meditation, they're younger. Their physiological age is much younger than their biological age. And the reason because it's probably you can apply one of the from some principles of physics, like in Einstein, that did state that as an object moves closer to light, there is time dilatation. So there is the effect of time actually reduces when you approach light, the velocity of light, you can say. So that means that if you cultivate sattva guna, and you're less likely to have a time affecting the body too much. So there is a better telomere repair, as better cell repair, better recovery. So, and also the second thing is the sound meditation. It actually diminishes excess of tamas and rajas. So do we have any well-accepted physiological measures, surrogate measures for sattva guna? So we have this picture which shows what is heart rate variability. So the heart rate variability concept is our hearts, which at normal resting rate, they're not beating at same constant monotonous way. The beat to beat intervals change by on millisecond basis, and so it actually it expands and contracts, and it's dependent on how it's a language. It's almost like a Morse code going from the heart to the brain, and actually it actually regulates the way the heart is the brain is actually processing information which is coming from the heart. Here, I would like to also point out that this is an important pathway of the heart to brain communication, because there's an if you have a very continuous orderly changes, if you have if you just see the heart rhythms, if they are very very orderly, and it's actually it's conveyed to the brain. These orderly impulses, they create a favorable state of cognition in some brain areas. And I don't want to get into the technicalities, but heart rate variability, if you have a better heart rate variability, it is associated with with stress resilience and physiological and psychological flexibility. If somebody has a low heart rate variability, like if our rhythms are very haphazard, like on the left side, it indicates many diseases, chronic diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, depression, dementia, diabetes. So you can actually predict a person's susceptibility to a disease like diabetes 5 to 6 years before you actually find high sugars in the blood. But if that person has a bad heart rate variability, you can predict that the person has increased susceptibility for heart disease and diabetes.
Dr. Damerla, I'd just like to remind that maybe we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes.
Yes. So here is so we have this. This is an electron microscope. Microscope of the heart, where we see the neurons in the heart are very indistinguishable from that you find in the brain. So the brain has a very unique heart anatomical organization. Almost there seems to be a brain in the heart itself. So why is that? That is because probably we know from Vedic understanding that it is due to the presence of seat of consciousness, and it has to orchestrate a lot of things. So it's given, heart is given a special anatomical organization. This slide is very known to devotees. What is the mantra? I don't have to go into that. There are 3 stages of the mantra practice. And we know that mental and audible repetition of divine name stands beyond religious doctrines, dogma, or ritual. It is integral part of science of self-realization. We know that the repetition of sounds with spiritual connection, it leads to a higher level of awareness at individual level and an increase of sattva guna or mode of goodness. So this is actually a study which was done by Dr. Wolf, Veera Govind Prabhu, about 20 years ago. And in that, he documented the effects of chanting the Hare Krishna Mantra on psychosocial function. The study participants experienced an increase in sattva guna as measured by a standardized scale called Vedic Personality Questionnaire, as well as a decrease in rajas and tamas, which corresponded to relief of stress and depression. The effects persisted after 4 weeks of stopping the chanting practice, unlike what is seen with prescription medications. This is our study, which we published in 2018. So in this study, we saw that if you just see this, on the left side is before chanting, and on the right side is after chanting. In that, we see that we actually see the more orderly heart rhythms after just half an hour of chanting, which indicates improvement of healthy heart rate variability frequencies. So in the second study, we did another study starting in 2021 during actually the COVID pandemic. And in that, we actually refined the technique. We did a heart-focused audible chanting, concentrated hearing. We asked the participants to keep the hand close to the chest so that they can feel the reverberation of the mantra while they chanted the vibration. And we also had a placebo group who chanted a mantra similar to Mahamantra in the terms of meter. And then we saw that in the mantra, there was better self-regulation, much, much higher than the placebo and control groups. This is another study we did on a cancer patients. In this brain cancer patient, we found indices of resilience increase by a significant extent. This is also another study which is done by Dr. Behra and his associates at IIT Mandi, where we see that the 6 weeks of mantra training actually increased the sleep efficiency, and which is pretty significant actually. This is the abstract. This is I'm grateful to Chandan Kumar Behra for sharing this. So there is results showed that the Hare Krishna Mantra significantly improved sleep quality measures, including a 61% reduction in efficiency in daytime sleepiness was decreased by 60%, and also there was increase in sleep efficiency. So some of the mechanisms, I don't want to get into the details, but the most important thing is attentive hearing of the mechanical audible repetition of sounds rooted in the Sanskrit improves proportion of sattva guna, which results in positive emotions generated in the heart, and that actually translates to brain centers interpreting this orderly organization of heart impulses, and you're capable of making better executive decisions. You have better higher willpower. So here, this is actually the same figure I showed you in the beginning. By chanting the repetitive audible Mahamantra chanting increases the distance from the mind. Actually, a person is able to create distance himself from the thoughts which are happening, the negative thoughts. When you think that I am not this thought, I am the living entity which is observing this thought. That space is being created by the Mahamantra. It probably also increases it actually increases a person's capacity to heal, because it slows down functional aging. So the major takeaway, if you just see the Sankhya philosophy, so the major takeaway is the evolute of consciousness. So is the elements, and the awareness of hearing the vibration actually does a lot of things. So the audible meditation, it actually increases the accuracy to dissociate the mind from excesses of lower modes of nature. So there's also perceptual refinement by interlocking of the sound and mind. And as we can see, the sound is the subtlest of all the sense objects, and the mind is the subtlest of the sattva. So the conclusion is the mechanism of action of the heart region focused audible mantra meditation is likely associated with deep relaxation through activation of better heart-brain connection. The interpretation based on Vedic mantra is creating lightness between the conscious self and the mind, and brings about a sense of clarity, relaxation, and harmony and maintenance. Our clinical research suggests that the audible mantra repetition improves heart rate variability and self-regulation, and a decreased activity of the mind's wandering centers. Therefore, our research is a valid preventive tool and improves outcomes in modern or traditional treatments of chronic negative psychological states.
All right. Thank you
So
very
this
much.
is
I
yeah.
think,
Sorry, I
yeah.
took a little extra time.
Thank you very much. All right. On to you, Dr. Uma Pallavi.
So, yeah. I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, please.
So thank you very much, Dr. Damerla. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. So I would like to take forward the wonderful research presentation of Dr. Damerla on the Mahamantra research that we have conducted in Rishikesh, Ames. So I would talk more about the field work and my personal experience, followed by what I'm currently doing at IIT Mandi. So this is our team at Ames. So this is what it was like performing this experiment on the Mahamantra. So what you can see on the screen is like a mantra instructor who is instructing the participant in mantra meditation. And down here you see this troop test, and on towards the right hand side bottom is the P300. So we're very grateful to Dr. Damerla for giving us very quality premises in which we could do this research work, and also we had the best of training in terms of the HRV tutorials and training in Mahamantra instruction, and it was done by Dr. Wolf, the Govind Prabhu. So it was one of the best experiences being trained under him to understand the subtleties of how to actually give the mantra to a novice in terms of one who has had absolutely no exposure in the past to the philosophy or no exposure to chanting. So it is to these participants to whom the mantra has been given. And as Dr. Damerla was saying, it is the whole group was divided into the test group, the placebo group, and the control group. And I would like to share one memorable experience during this field work, perhaps as a very objective observer of the participants. So as we were giving the mantra to the main test group who chanted only the mantra, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and there was a placebo group who chanted the Mahamantra for a few weeks, and then after a break of 2 weeks, they have chanted the placebo. Placebo is another 16-syllable Sanskrit mantra, which is not the Mahamantra, but it had which had the same phonetic meter. That's the sham sound vibration. So interestingly, what we have observed is the test group which chanted only the Mahamantra were very comfortable while chanting, although they had no prior exposure, and they had no exposure to the philosophy, absolutely. And then those participants who have been marked, the placebo group, they have chanted the Mahamantra for the first few weeks, 5 weeks, and then after a break of 2 weeks, they began to chant the placebo. So one remarkable observation by perhaps all the mantra instructors is that the test group chanted the Mahamantra with good attention, concentration, and absorption. And the placebo group had chanted the Mahamantra for the first 5 weeks. But when they were exposed and they were made to chant the placebo mantra, they were very restless. And they were like kind of looking at their watch every now and then. And they were they were not at ease at all. They couldn't focus for long. In between, they took breaks, and they kept on asking the instructors, how long does this go on? And they were pretty much uneasy to chant the sham mantra. So this was a very remarkable observation, because this in itself speaks very clearly about how the Mahamantra, which actually Prabhupada has mentioned many a times, that it's not some kind of a superficial imposition, but it's very natural to the inner, the soul, perhaps. So that's how we could see that the participants who had absolutely no prior exposure either to the philosophy or to the mantra could easily focus and concentrate on the Mahamantra. But when they were given the placebo, they were restless and they couldn't focus. So this was, I got this beautiful quote that, so the holy name of Krishna is so attractive that anyone who chants it, including all living entities, so anyone who chants it, even if they didn't have any prior exposure to chanting or the philosophy, they found that attractive. And we could really see that in our participants. And I was told by Dr. Damerla, in fact, when they were conducting this experiment back in the US, there was a pilot, a lady, who was actually a part of this whole study. And this lady, she had absolutely no connection to even Rama and Krishna. Nonetheless, after the entire study was over, she said, I mean, she had absolutely no conception of, God or nothing. And even she said that once the study was done, I would want to continue this mantra for the rest of my life. So this has been a very interesting part of the study to see how the participants have reported their natural absorption and focus on the sound vibration. So this was a small experience while I was doing my research in AIMS Rishikesh. And of course, I would speak something about my current research work that I'm doing at IIT Mandi. So I mean, in the previous presentation, Dr. Behra has presented something about the current IKS interventions that are happening now as a part of the research work in IIT Mandi. So I have taken the Bhagavad Gita as an IKS intervention, and I'm trying to study its impact on decision making. So as we all know, that the whole Gita is about how Arjuna has moved from indecision to the decision to fight. It's a journey of Arjuna from indecision to decision. So this is a research work on how spiritual intelligence can impact decision making. So spirituality as such is a form of intelligence, as researchers speak. So I would quickly perhaps speak about the two types of decision making. There is strategic and intuitive decision making, and in intuitive decision making, values and ethics play a very important role. So if you see, decision making is a very huge topic, and perhaps maximum amount of research is conducted on this very topic in the field of management. And in the recent past, the most of the papers are published on how AI, the artificial intelligence, is impacting decision making. So although there are a lot of benefits of how AI is aiding decision making, nonetheless, one of the limitations is that it requires a strong ethical framework to have a holistic or a good, a well-made decision. So this is where the spiritual intelligence actually comes into picture. So these are, perhaps I'll just complete it in another 2 minutes.
Yeah, maybe just 1 more minute.
Okay, so this is where, all right, yeah. So this, I'll just read out some. Okay. So spiritual intelligence has a significant role in the quality of decision-making process. And spiritual quotient is an inevitable factor in decision-making process. It facilitates problem solving and goal attainment. And spiritual intelligence implies an adaptive and problem-solving capacity. So this is where the strategic decision-making comes into picture. Strategic decision-making is all about how well one can analyze and synthesize the problem. And there are researchers which speak about how spiritual intelligence can enhance one's problem-solving capacity as well. And workplace spirituality has an significant impact on work attitudes like organizational performance, job involvement, and job commitment. And it's associated with self-interest transcendence. So this is where my current study is about how the Bhagavad Gita can impact decision-making. Thank you very much. So I would end my presentation here.
Okay, thank you very much.